It's great to be here. Thanks, Mo. I appreciate it. My name is Anthony Walsh. I am a candidate for the 3rd Congressional District of Minnesota and also the author of Hockey is for Everybody. And could not be more grateful to be here. And it's an honor to be speaking with you and sharing space with you tonight, Mo. So thank you.
With that being said, I appreciate, I'm honored to have you here. It's great. I think I know for a fact that you're gonna win this election. Just knowing you, you're such an endearing, genuine individual. It's hard for people not to like you. You know what I'm saying? You have a really personable demeanor to yourself. With that being said, I'm going to open up the floor to you. You're on IGSTS. Let us know about you. Tell us.
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, I think the best place to always start is probably just the beginning. And so my life started off in DC General Hospital, and it's no longer around. At the time in '94, it was described as a place for no alternative for people that didn't have a lot of better outcomes or were given birth. And so I was given birth there and immediately put into a foster home or orphanage and started my life there. So from 2 months in, I was adopted to Minnesota, and that's where I've spent the rest of my life and where I'm at now, obviously. And so that's what I identify myself as, is a Minnesotan. And so like many Minnesotans, I grew up playing hockey, but unlike many Minnesotans, my motivation for that was my brother, which might be like other people, but my brother is an African-American man as well. And then he was able to see these young boys called the Dynamites getting an award, and that inspired him to say, hey, what's hockey? I want to play hockey, which then inspired me, being 5 years younger than my older brother, to want to play hockey because I wanted to do everything he was doing at that time. And so that's how our family became a hockey family. My mother didn't play, my father didn't play. They're not, athletes and that such. And so it really took over our lives in a good way. And I grew up playing the sport with people of many different backgrounds and people that were, the children of CEOs and professional sports athletes, and also, though, parents and children, who were divorcees and who were, lower income in any different way, and all different people. And so, to me, it's always been something in my life of diversity bringing strength and diversity enhancing character, and that's essentially brought me to where I'm at today. But I'll again bring you back to high school. So, for instance, I played hockey for Edina, which traditionally has been a very good hockey program. I had the absolute privilege to be an honor being on a team with a bunch of dudes who won the championship, state championship together, AA. And so that was really formative for me, right? That was something that we had worked for our entire lives, and then achieving that goal. And so not only that, but again, I'm achieving it with a group of people that, look different, had different backgrounds. And so having that be a seminal experience in my life really showed that, again, not only can diversity bring strength, but that it, is required almost, right, to win. And so I think about iron, right? Just iron in itself. You want to build a boat out of iron, put it in the ocean, it's going to wilt. Wilt. But if you bring iron, meld it with carbon, that makes steel, and that's one of the hardest metals in the world. And so again, you need diversity, and it brings strength. And so that's something I've always saw in my life and always felt in my life. And so at that point, went to undergrad. I played junior hockey in Canada for a bit, and but ultimately, rec sports are so important to me still to this day. I'd mentioned I'm an author of a book called Hockey is for Everybody, but I dove into my academics, and so when I was doing my academics, I studied abroad twice, and so I was in Santiago, Chile. I was in Moss, Norway, which is about 45 minutes outside of Oslo, and I really found myself, growing in those experiences. And so I had lived in Canada, lived in Chile, lived in Norway, lived in, Minnesota, gone to North Dakota, school there, lived there. And I really discovered that, although, again, very different culturally and food and music, et cetera, right, we were all a lot alike. And so, that's always been something that's really stuck with me, and something that I really, again, like to tell people when you hear them having fear of the other, it's, you know, hey, maybe go and have a conversation, you know, go out and try to, you know, have a talk with that person, and I guarantee you, you're going to find something that you have in common with that person. And so, you know, just always reminding people of that. And so after undergrad, I moved out to Washington, D.C., and so that was to reunite with my biological family, but also to work with Heidi Heitkamp, senator at the time. And so I had done a DNA test in college to know if I was Jamaican. I just wanted to know what my ancestral background was. I have a beard, I have, you know, glowing skin, all this kind of stuff. I thought maybe I was West Indian. I just wanted to know, right? People want to know their lineage. And so I did a DNA test, and it comes back I'm not Jamaican. My family is... you know, as because one of the first families to, you know, be, you know, in the States, my DNA traces right back, you know, to the shores of, you know, Virginia, Carolinas area, right, nice. Where, you know, and so, and also, yeah, so that was crazy to find out. It was great, and then I also was able to have a match with my biological aunt, and so that unraveled into a whole thing where nobody knew about the adoption that had happened, and so learning about that was incredibly powerful. And yeah, like I had tried to reach out to my mother at the time, and just due to, you know, utter shock of, you know, after having relinquished rights, and, you know, all of a sudden, you know, nobody knowing, et cetera, all these kind of things, there you are, right, the truth smacks you in the face. She wasn't ready for that. So that was okay, but I moved up to DC, and I had pictures my aunt had sent me before the communication had kind of stopped, all that kind of stuff. So I would be walking around asking people, do you know these people, all that kind of stuff. I knew a few names, so I was saying their name, you know, and every once in a while I'd have a few hits. Somebody would be like, oh, you know, I know this person, you know, that's Dewey. One of my brother's name is Dewey, and he was actually incarcerated at the time. He's out now, but just, so that was always really eye-opening. So, you know, asking when he was getting out, I was, oh, you know him? I don't know him. Can you give me information on how to find these people? And, you know, adoption can be kind of taboo, I think, sometimes in all communities, but sometimes in particular with the Black community, and transracial adoption can sometimes be a little bit taboo there. And so, like, when I met somebody actually in the Target, they were coming up to me, they came up to me, they were, you know, shooting the crap, right, blah, blah, blah. Like, a whole 2 minutes went by, and this person, the look on my face was kind of like, you know, they could probably figure it out. And they were like, oh, you don't remember me, do you? And I was like, brother, I've never met you before in my life. I have no idea who you are. And he's like, oh, it's been some years. And I was like, I've never met you before. You know, like, you know, I haven't met you. And he was like, and I was like, you know what? You know, I have a brother who's I'm adopted. And he's like, oh, you're not little Day Day. And I was like, no. And so kind of a little bit fast forward, I ended up finding my biological family after the 2 years of a legitimate search. But one of my brother's names is Davon, and so we look very similar, and so somebody mistook me for him, and so just day by day until that moment happened, I got a lot closer. And so my parents back home, you know, Pam, Huey, Paul Walsh, who are, you know, incredible people. They raised me to be able to you know, be a confident human being and an adult, but just again, like, you know, there are certain things that you always just want to know about who you are. So having a great childhood doesn't erase wanting to know what your background is and all that. And so, you know, I really, again, took all the lessons that I had through hockey and my parents, you know, the perseverance, the strength, and, you know, found my biological family. And so I reached out to my brother over Instagram at one point, because I'd searched Instagram. I had known a few names here and there. I was gathering information. You know, I was done working at the Senate for Heidi Heitkamp. She had lost her re-election. So I had enrolled in law school part-time, and I was working full-time at a think tank. And I just, again, I wanted to be immersed, you know, in DC. I wanted to be living there, trying to figure out how to, you know, get stuff going. And so, you know, once all that kind of happened, COVID happened. And so COVID's happening, like, I find my biological family, right? Like, all this kind of stuff goes down. And it was just the most incredible experience I've ever had in my life. And so I showed you the video, Mo, of that night that we met there. And yeah, like, I've never in a million years wanted or needed anything else in my life. And so I met my biological father after that. I went from having 2 siblings to having 13. So I have a biological, and, you know, it's really great. We were all
got a hockey team,
got a whole team, you know, all age ranges, you know, from, you know, 35 to 14. And I'm in a group chat with, you know, different, you know, siblings on either side. And so, like, while I was, you know, talking to some of my siblings on my father's side today in the group chat, and it's really you know, when you realize like what's going on, as I kind of sat there, I'm like, you know what, wow, this is super powerful, and you know, not every adoptee needs that or wants that, and so like I understand that as well. But for those that do, I hope you get that, and if you don't, you know, my heart is with you, and to know that life is so worth living, and that it's just, you know, never give up. Nah, you know, my records are still sealed, and you know, domestically I was adopted, so it's a little bit easier to, you know, when I got the information about where they were to travel and to find them and to search, you know, track them down. But you know, don't give up on your dreams, and you know, that's something that again has really helped complete me to be where I'm at today. Again, I've always been very confident knowing who I was, but this journey of like, you know, not only, you know, right, am I a black man in America, but it's like, here I'm a black man in America that, again, I know now my biological mother, my father, my siblings, my grandfather, grandmother, I know, you know, my cousins, stuff like that. You know, it's always really crazy telling people this, but Marvin Gaye is my second cousin, and so, you know, that's always really
and when you
wild.
said it, you can see that in your facial features.
It's wild.
Just so when you told me that night when we first met, I was like, once you said it, it was like I should have said it before, because you do have a strong semblance to Marvin Gaye.
So when I was in DC, I was, you know, you do coffees with people, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so I was doing a coffee with this person, and they were like, hey, mid-coffee kind of stopped, you know, because it's more like, they're kind of mock interviews, and was like, do you happen to be related to the Gay family? And this was a year and a half prior to me, you know, reuniting my biological family. And I was like, no, like, I'm adopted. I have no idea. There's no. And so it's really crazy, because then once that happened, I emailed the guy being like, you know, and I found out, and again, it's like I had met my biological family, and it was a full week and a half, 2 weeks later that I found that out, because we were just eating, right, all these kind of things, and they played some Marvin Gaye, and I love Marvin Gaye already, right? Everybody, you know, and so, you know, and then, oh, yes, it's, you know, second cousin, you know, that you almost about fainted, right? You know, and so, like, what are you talking about? No, so nonchalant. And so, I mean, again, when that's just your life, you know that. But for me, it's like, not only now has this moment of, like, my biological family, I know, like, you know, just like it was just amazing, you know. And so when it all boils down to it again, there's been that incredible experience.
Now Marvin Gaye is your mother's, that's his sister, your mother, right?
So
right?
My mother's mother is his aunt,
okay.
And then like his or her sister is his mom.
Okay.
So yes, so it's like
your grand uncle.
Well, it makes second cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because like it's my mother's first cousin. So it's like, you know, her mother's sister's son. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like, you know, grand, whatever, like, you know, uncle in the family, like by, you know, those standards, but like it'd be a cousin. But yes, I would call him if he was alive today. And I was growing up with him. Yeah, he'd be my uncle. Yeah, you know,
that's sort of how we did it in our family too. Like anybody older than me, even if they were my cousin, they would be my uncle, especially if they were out of high school and they were grown. And that would be the conversation. How did it, like, are you still in conversations with your mother?
Yes. Yeah, quite regularly. And, you know, biological father.
How does that dynamic change now? So you got the Walshes here in Minnesota.
Yep.
And were they, like, were they accepting to you going out looking for your mom, or did they feel a certain type of way when you brought that up? And how did that conversation happen when you decided to go on this journey to find him?
Yeah, my parents have been the most incredible supportive people. Like, they paid for my DNA test. They've, you know, I mean, like, yeah. I could not be more grateful for their support, especially when I know that I've run into, you know, other adoptees who have, you know, had horror stories with that.
Yeah.
And so, incredibly supportive. You know, I just posted again, like a thing on Facebook today. If anybody want to check it out, you know, go to my Facebook, check it out there. But this video of me meeting my biological mother, and then I was able to tag both of my mothers, you know, like the first thing, Kathleen, my mother gave birth to me, said to Pam, who raised me, my biological, you know, my mom, right, you know, so to this day, right, you know, that's what I call her, my mom, right, she is my mom, was thank you, right, because that was, you know, what a incredibly selfless thing to do at that point, right, like you raise somebody else's child, right, and of course, you know, children need to be raised anyway, but just, and, you know, you would think that, especially if you're adopting, that you would give a child a good home, but just that, like, you know, what a scary ultimate thing to know if you're going to be giving the child to somebody and then never see them again. And so, yes, like, you know, my parents have always been really supportive. And so I've, you know, been nothing but grateful for that. And, yeah, like I love them, and they've, we haven't, like, we're, over technology, everybody's met, and so, but like we're eventually here really soon going to be getting everybody together, like all the kind of stuff. COVID was going on, and so like that was a huge role. I was going to do a graduation thing, like that kind of like got like delayed here and there, and so there's just like little bit things that like we were going to be doing this, still going to be doing this. Now with the campaign, right? I've had a really great support again from family here, family there. Wanting to come out and help, and just again really supportive of, and it just makes me so happy that I can have such a great, large, multicultural family that, wants to be involved in each other's lives. And so, especially, on my dad's side right now, we're doing really intentional about trying to build relationships. And so, and then again, I have good relationships with like my family who I grew up with, right? My cousins in Minnesota, I'm incredibly close with Joey Lau, Anna Lau. We're all super close. Like, I'm working really close with my cousins on, what we're going to be doing, as far as like, campaign strategy, et cetera. I'm saying, like, my family's very supportive on all sides. And so I am so blessed and so grateful.
That's such a great thing to have, to be able to talk about that. Where's your dad living at now?
Biological father.
Your biological father.
Washington, D.C.
He's in D.C.
Yeah,
So
Alonzo, yeah.
That was your start in D.C. and your mom's in Seattle?
D.C. Yeah, everybody's in D.C.
Oh, in D.C. Yeah. Okay, so I thought that sort of the travel...
So yeah, like Washington D.C. versus Washington State.
And but you did go work on a campaign in Washington. Was that Washington?
Oh, that was D.C.
That was D.C.
So
also.
yeah, so that was Senator Heidi Heitkamp, and she's from North Dakota, or like from there, was a senator from there, and was her re-election campaign, which is ultimately separate. Like I was working in the D.C. office, which is separate from the campaign office, all that kind of stuff. But yes, she was a North Dakota senator.
Okay.
So
did that make you more susceptible to seeking office because you had that exposure? Like it made you like maybe did her working in her campaign make you look more toward being a political candidate opposed to going into a law office?
No, not at all. But I'll say, so I'll get back honestly to telling it because it all kind of folds in. And I don't say not at all like that, but it's just like, it was, the absolutely disgusting horrendous murder of George Floyd that brought me in this realm.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
I was living in D.C., like I said, I had just my biological family, like we were all hanging out. I spent a lot of time with them, going to law school, all this kind of, but it was inside, we're indoors. And then, seeing George Floyd be murdered, right, was one of the most, I almost again still can't get, like, this long drawn out, sadistic murder of this, of this human being, then done by, a sanctioned member of the state, right? Again, murder in general is absolutely horrible, but like you have then this, state sanctioned murder essentially happening. Derek Chauvin went home after, right? All these kind of things. It was a horrible situation, and people reacted, in kind after with what happened there, and then that was horrible as well. And so, this whole thing that's happening was horrible. And so W.B. Du Bois, sociologist, right, the first black man to get a PhD from Harvard,
yes,
was in Atlanta and working on some scientific work that he was always doing. And a man named Samuel Hose was falsely accused of assaulting a white woman and was hung then in front of thousands of people in Georgia. And W.B. Du Bois saw out of his window something burning, massive fire, was like, wow, what's happening there? Ended up being Samuel Hose getting burned, and then was going to mail this, great scientific work he had just done when he saw, Samuel Hose's knuckles being sold at a corner store, some little boy about to buy them. And he was like, I cannot be working on scientific work. I need to be healing this problem that we have in this world. This, this disease of hatred. And again, like he could no longer functionally walk through life without trying to do something. Whether or not he fixed it was another question, but he could not functionally walk through life another day without trying to solve that problem. And that's what happened to me. I had my moment at a W.B. Du Bois moment. I think being from Minneapolis, Minnesota made a world of difference. And so when I had interned at Hennepin County growing up, I had swag that I would wear around Washington, D.C., and I would walk around pre-George Floyd moment anonymous, right? Like, this crest, walking around, boom, 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 nobody know, walking about. Day after that, weeks after that, right? Culmination, a couple weeks, because I moved very soon after that. But, people would stop me in the streets, and they put their hands on me, my shoulders. George Floyd, Hennepin County, what's going on? And that's crazy. Why are you wearing this? What's going? People really. Nobody knew where Minnesota was. A lot of people. Nobody knew what Hennepin. Minneapolis, and now the whole world knew what it was. And because of this sadistic killing that we all got to see, the life stamped out of this, human being, mama, right? People surrounding, saying, "What are you doing?" What? That was not the Minnesota, the Hennepin County, the Minneapolis area that I grew up in, and it broke my heart to know and think that is exactly the way that the world viewed us, and I had to do something. I could no longer be talking action. I had to take action, and so I moved to Minnesota. I transferred to schools, Mitchell Hamlin and St. Paul, which I have recently graduated from, and I started coaching hockey because I wanted to be grassroots on the ground, boots on the ground. How can I help? And having grown up again in that world, it seemed like a great place to reinvigorate my Minnesota-ness. And so when I went back in there, I was getting approached by mothers and fathers of players of color, and they were telling me about these things that were happening to them, to their children, and again, sometimes overt racism or the microaggressions. Some Muslim kids being like, "Hey, you're terrorists," and making fun of hijabs, and right, all those kind of things. And so it was very sad and deeply hurtful, because that is what I gone through, right? And so it kind of all hit me at that moment that, like, wait a minute, like, they're, and I can give specific numbers right now, but they're not in front of me, and like, I again know them, but I don't want to be messing them up. But a lot, we're called the state of hockey for a reason, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, and so a lot of people play hockey in Minnesota, and so like that's the third place for a lot of people, like the sociological third place, so the place you spend the most time outside of your house besides work and then school. And so the rink is the third place for a lot of people. And so when you have it to be a majority, non-BIPOC places, right? Like, you're going to miss those opportunities to build strong cross-cultural relationships. And so, we've not been intentional about that. And then as the BIPOC population in Minnesota has exponentially grown as well. And of course, we're going to get culture clashes. And then you got people that are police officers, policing areas that they don't live in. And, we got this, powder keg moment, which we saw then with what happened to George Floyd. And so it just makes sense to me that, like, we got to that, it was sudden. It was unperpetrated, attack on George Floyd. And that was a culmination of decades of not building strong cross-cultural relationships. And so I thought to myself, wow, like, I played hockey, right? Like, I was with all these people. The people I played with are doing really well. There's a couple people, that have had law degrees now, medical degrees, MBAs. Somebody that I'm very close with still works at Sidley Austin, where Michelle Obama met. Like, we've all done very well for ourselves. Yet here we were again, this diverse group of people growing up, winning, and then so doing well. And so I've always really felt like that was something special and wanted to tell people. So why a children's book? You have to be carefully taught. South Pacific is a 1958 movie. It's also a Broadway play, but there's a song called "You Have to Be Carefully Taught," and so basically the premise is you have to be taught before it's too late, before you're 6 or 7 or 8. Hate the ones your relatives hate. You have to be carefully taught, and so right, children are not inherently hateful, right? They don't just grow up saying, "Oh, I hate such and such for that reason," right? They're taught by their aunt, their uncle, their grandma, grandpa. Somebody tells them that they shouldn't be hanging out with that person, right? And so what I realized, right, that they can be taught to hate, then they can be taught to love. And so, I wrote this children's book again with those kind of lessons that really made it seem like, we had a mission that we could do to get people together. And so I love that. And, that's why I wrote the book. And that's why now, again, I continue to coach. I go in classrooms. I do all these things. There's a Richfield Little Spartans program that is being revamped, and so we're really trying to get Richfield's youth hockey program going. That's really more the youth focus. What I'll be on this winter, Mosaic Hockey Collective, is something I do help start with a mom named Meredith Lang and Mike Cafferney, a hockey dad, Becca Clays, Candy Olson, Perry Wilkerson. Just trying to really make hockey more inclusive, for everybody. And again, like I was kind of saying, just if we can make the sport look more like the state, like the country, then that's just going to benefit, everybody, and avoid those situations like we, saw, which built up to happen with George Floyd, because, there were, again, people that were around of all different backgrounds that wanted that to stop, and so again, just like empowering people, giving them a chance to build strong, intentional cross-cultural relationships is what is really, again, what I've been about. And so that led to my run for Congress. And so I've really been impressed with young people taking action, right, instead of just talking action. And so I had mentioned Annika Bowie in St. Paul, you have Nadia Mohammed, the Justins in Tennessee, Frost in Florida. You just have young people taking action. And so I was inspired by that. I am disturbed by what's happening with the division in the parties, the two-party system. Government shutdown, right? I mean, that's all you hear about Washington, right? But yet consistently salaries are being paid and investigations are happening and like all these kind of things are happening, yet like the American people are not getting the work done that they sent these people to Washington to do. And so, there's different things that I very much thought, again, I'm not an aggrieved person per se, like all terribly aggrieved, but I'm aggrieved enough to think that the two-party system's not working. We need somebody that is running, as I am now, as an independent candidate, to try to bring people together, to be more issues-based, right? That isn't going to be taking, vast amounts of corporate money, all that kind of stuff like that, right? Listening to the people that sent them to Washington to do the job there. And so that is why I am running. That's why I do think I am the best candidate to do that. I am running for the 3rd District, Congressional District of Minnesota, and so that is where I grew up and continue to live and will live. And so I think nobody better, for this position, at least at this moment, like I had talked about with my background, because I want to be a candidate for unity, and I mean that. And so right now, the division is destroying us. A house divided cannot stand. Coach Boone talked about it, at the Battle of Gettysburg. Remember the Titans, and we need to take a lesson from the dead and realize that if we don't come together, we too shall be destroyed. And I firmly believe that we cannot move forward the way the two-party system has us divided and think that we are going to be any kind of safe, functional, healthy country to move forward, to pass along, to pass back to the generations of Americans still to come. And so that's why I'm running.
So when you decided you were going to run, who was the first person you told that you were running? When it came to you, who did you tell? So tell me.
So for Congressional 3rd District.
Correct.
My long-term girlfriend, and then my parents.
So when you told her, what did she say? What was her response to you?
Neutral. Like it was positive. Like it's positive. Like she loves and believes in me, but it was just like, there was more just like, okay, she want to do something like this. Is that, she's an occupational therapist, to not grow up in an overly political environment. She doesn't think heavily about these kind of issues all the time, and so it was just kind of. But now again, this was 7 days ago per se, right? And now is she's one of my is my biggest supporter, and so it's just kind of like she had to hear it, had to understand what it was. Well, what a lot of my friends, and and this is something that you realize, they're really smart people, again, with their doctorates, etc., right? Like don't necessarily even realize like what their congressional district is. They're like, oh, what is that? Oh, so you're going to Washington. Oh, what exactly will you be doing? So me even doing this in itself has helped other people want to be involved, want to be more educated on the political system. I've had people reach out saying that I've thought about running for years, and you've expanded, my mind to think that I could do something like that. I know that you are a regular guy, and I am, and that, like if you are getting the courage and think that you can do something like this, then that means anybody can in a good way as well, right? And so I mean that, and I am doing this for that reason. And so, those are some of the people I told. And then outside of my family, right, I was telling my boss, my supervisor, so, she had a heads up, and again, some of my then friends that, and everybody, what's really interesting and why I was so, confident in my decision to go forward, right, is that not a single person said that this didn't align with who I was.
Exactly.
You know what I'm kind of saying? Like, yeah, like
when you text me and said it, I was like, I could see you in a judgeship, or I could see you in a political arena, because of not so much about anything to do as I just think that you have the ethics and the morals to carry that position. When you were elected to this position, what would be the first thing you would do? I mean, maybe I'm putting you on a hot plate right away, but have you thought about how that would look? What bills would you be carrying? What things you think that are utmost something that you're really passionate about, that you think you would push or be behind your first day?
Yeah, I would push a bill that looks at recidivism. And so Zaki Barber in New York, who is a formerly incarcerated person, just worked with the governor to get a bill now passed so that formerly incarcerated people can get a fresh start. And, you know, seeing that something like that is happening is really inspiring. And so I think that, right, it's, you know, ending perpetual punishment. People serve their time, and again, for crimes that sometimes we debate are debatable in crimes, to be quite frank, calling them crimes. And so I think like looking at that is something that's important. I do believe, again, that I go into a lot of schools and I talk to a lot of kids who are hungry. And it doesn't make any sense to me, to be quite frank, when we're the richest country in the world, why children are hungry. And so, like, I think that, you know, that would be something I would try to tackle. And so that'd be really important. And I'm a unity candidate. And so that's really important to me, to bring unity to people. And right now with the two parties, it's hard when we have two parties, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I talked about it earlier. You know, we all love the Vikings, right? We're from Minnesota, and you have the Packers. And so if there was only Wisconsin and Minnesota, and that was what forever, we would have killed each other by now, right? The animosity that grows, right? Thank God we had the Bears, the Lions, right? The Charger. You know, like it just, nothing else in life you start to see, right? This binary solution, black and white, right? Ever turns out great. It seems to just be tension filled, and there's not a lot of gray. And so that is what I'm going to focus on, is looking at issues that are considered to be not, you know, to be, oh, this is a partisan issue, and make it bipartisan, right? You know, I think again, like climate change, for instance, right? Like conservative is conserve, right? You know, Teddy Roosevelt started the national park system. Richard Nixon started the EPA. Now you talk about climate change and it's, oh, you're a liberal, you're this, and it's just that, like, we just got to get back to being able to, like, actually have a conversation as Americans and not look at something like, you know, using language to describe another American because their opinions are different than you, as like vermin and all these kind of stuff like that, is very concerning, because we are more like than we are different. And again, if like we are just allowing ourselves to let issues divide us to the point again where we're ready to, you know, harm each other, we've lost, right? We've now lost. And you know, we are no longer living in, you know, this utopia that of America that our founders had built for us.
Nowadays.
Yeah, so I've had a lot of, since I've started this process, I've had a lot of great mentors in the process of writing books, and then also now with running for office, but process of writing books and just kind of building out a grassroots level, a community based organization, and just, you know, effort has been great, because people like, for instance, Dr. Artika Taina have really helped. And so she is an author. She has written you know, numerous books, over 30 books. Her collection, you know, can be bought in stores around Minneapolis. And she is a law professor, a lawyer, a, you know, public policy whiz, a award-winning author. Like, just, you know, she does it all. And so she has, you know, she's helped me along this journey. And so, you know, like really, again, could not be anywhere right without the people that have helped mentor me and coach me to this place that I'm at now. And so, that's, again, for everybody, right? Going to hockey coaches, track coaches. Melvin Anderson was a track coach of mine, and, looked to him as, a great role model. We had, Keith Ellison, growing up, Elijah and Jeremiah, and, around those teams. And you had people like the Coffees, and then also in hockey, right? And so I had a great hockey role models, great hockey coaches. And so, I had Kurt Giles, Dave Terwilliger, Dick Blueston, the list goes on and on. And so I cannot be more grateful for, the teachers as well. So Diane Daniels, Tammy Carmichael, Miss McVeigh, like just a bunch of people, right? Again, a child, right? It's a child takes a village to raise that child, right, and to build them up. And so, I'm great. I would not be sitting here in front of you had I not had the support of people, my parents. To be honest, I should be for some of this 100%, right? But just life is crazy, right? And anybody that tells you that they're self-made and got to wherever they're at are lying. And so, my mentors, again, thank you, and to the people that believed in me and believe in me now, thank you, and to from bottom of my heart, from it. And so
I got one final question for you. You mentioned your brother that was 5 years older than you initially. Now, are you guys still close? And how did he fare in this whole relationship deal? Are you now closer, or did the fact that you went off and started doing your own thing sort of separated you guys? Are you guys, so what's your relationship looks like with that older brother that you shared the house with?
Yeah, Benjamin Walsh is my brother, my OG brother. I love him and to death. And so, we are, close-ish. We've never been like the most close, but like we were always close. 5 years older is a decent enough gap, and so the adoption stuff, no, that's never, hurt. After the first thing my biological mother, Kathleen, said to Pamela, my mother, was thank you, and then the second thing was, how's Benjamin? So she wanted to know how my brother was. And so, yeah, my brother has always played a major role in my life. I play hockey because of my brother. So, he's in Arizona now. He moved there. He's on different time. God's timing is different for everybody. Yes. He is, not doing what I'm doing, and that's okay, and he's all right. But just, everything is different. And so, like, I'm doing what I'm doing. He's doing what he's doing, but he's very supportive. I talked to him the other day. He's loving Arizona. I have a sister that lives out in Michigan. She is an amazing woman. So much I look up to her for so many different things. And, she, again, I have so many good things to say about everybody in my family. So, I wouldn't be here without, people in my family, out of my family, right? Like, I'm a testament to the people in my life as well, and that helped build me to be to this place. And so, and that goes to anybody listening to this, right? Like, anybody can get anywhere, but you got to have people believe in, right? So, like, find somebody that's younger than you and mentor them. Go out of your way to make sure that they have clothes or some food, or are confident, right? And they they might come in one day with their head down and say, hey, you know what, pick that head up, right? Like, you are worthy, and you don't know what you could be doing for that kid, that small little thing. I can go back in time and think again about times I remember I was gonna quit law school. Well, actually, not even gotten. I was gonna quit my LSAT stuff because, like, it was like I was working full time. Like, I would go, wake up at 5. I would go to the Senate. I would work. I'd do everything there, and then I would go after school to go to an LSAT class, or after work to an LSAT class at a different school. So, and I'd be an hour to work, hour to the class, and then the other, like, 2 hours back to the home. And so I'd be getting home, like, almost past midnight, and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And so anyway, I was just ready, I was ready to quit. And then I remember it's like this really kind woman, just like, without even knowing it, sort of the day, was just like, oh, like, how are you doing today? And, on the bus, and we started talking, and it just, like, got me out of that mindset. And, and I was like, oh, I can do this. And then I finished the classes, and I got, and now I'm a graduate from Mitchell, from law school, right? And so it's just kind of like, those kind of things happen, but it's just, you never, like, be kind, right? You don't know, like, what anybody's going through, like, you don't know, like, and so just, like, do your best, right? I know that, like, people are going to have transgressions against you, and you're going to be a human being, like, those kind of things happen, but, like, do your best, right? To reach your empathy, because it's like we're all going through something, right? We all have our demons, and so that's something I always want to leave people with. And also, one more thing is that the golden rule, right? Treat people the way that you want to be treated, and I say it wrong. It's treat people the way that they want to be treated. Mm-hmm. And I've always I heard that in the last year or so, and that really hit me, because it doesn't matter how I want to be treated. That might not be the way that you want to be treated. You know what I'm saying? Like that. Right? And then if I tell you that, and then you continue being well, I feel good when I get called this and that, and you're well, this makes me feel like crap. Well, then you can't just assume that because it makes you feel good, it makes them feel good. And so meet somebody where they're at, right? And so and I gotta go back to
there is a God.
There is a God, right? Analogy about the two-party system and why I'm running as an independent, right? Because that might confuse some people sometimes, right? And it just goes back to relieving that pressure valve, right? Right now, I think we've had so much two-party, Green Bay Packers and Vikings for the last 100 years, and that it's not sustainable.
You keep going back
right?
there. You hate the Packers, don't you?
Right. You know what? I'm a Minnesota fan, right? That's all I gotta say. Let's just say that I'm a Minnesota fan. I'm a Minnesota guy, and at the end of the day, I'm thankful for the Lions and the Bears. And
it was the fifth time you referenced that.
I know, right? Because I'm telling people, it's you gotta see it for what it is, and you can't look across the aisle and see someone that's not a human being. They're not worthy of having a conversation with, and a respect at least of a human being, to see maybe I can try to meet you somewhere. We have gotten so far away from that, right? And the gap has gotten so far, we've diverged so far, and in that gap has filled with hate, right? Yeah. And what is hate? It's fear. Mm-hmm. And what do you know about fear? Is it crumbles, right? It crumbles the soul. But FDR said we have nothing to fear but fear itself. And it's shameless, all this kind of stuff, right? Baseless, right? And all it does is cause people to hate. And so Gary Bertier as well said, when he was scared of Julius Campbell, that he could only see the hate and he was only scared of his brother. And so I encourage everybody to fill that void with love. Like Martin Luther King said, hate cannot, get rid of hate. It can only be love. And so that is, what I am. I'm a candidate of love. I'm a candidate of unity. And so that is why I am, again, running as an independent. So, please bear with me here and, stay with us. And so, you can find me at Walsh for Congress 2024. And, that's on Instagram. And we're building out the campaign. We're building out the team. I announced not even a week ago. And so that was something that, again, just as it all came to me, the story I just told you completely. At one point I thought, hey, you know what? Because of my background, I might run for city council one day. I saw the commissioner seat was open, so that kind of got me thinking a little bit more as well for District 6. And then Congressman Phillips had a lot of courage to, take action. He was talking. He said a lot of stuff to say and said, nobody answered the call, so he did. And he even said he might not even be in the position and the best person to do it, but he's doing it because he believes in having options. He believes in the American people. He believes in the American dream. And so when other people started announcing and I saw, people getting in, I thought, what, I am just as good or a better candidate than some of these people to be able to represent this district. And so that is why it's all come together, so quickly. But follow me there, continue to, add me on social media, and we're going to have the link for the campaign page to donate, etc. out here in the next couple of weeks. But, again, thank you so much. Stay with us here, and together we can bring change, and love is the way to make that happen. And so, God bless, and stay true to yourself. Thank you.
With that, let's go to break, and we're gonna come right back. Welcome back to IGSTS, SF Promoting Prison Lawyer, the smoothest podcast of podcast history. Got a special guest, Mr. Anthony Walsh. You got him? You got him? Anthony Walsh. Mr. Walsh is with me. Again, gentlemen, I met at Free Riders Shout out to Nate. What's up, Nate? I'm sorry I haven't been there. Appreciate your work. And it was great because as we moved through this universe, certain individuals have been placed in on our journey that we come across, and it's, you don't have to, every individual you come across that inspires you or does something to you, but it just seems like those individuals that do inspire you and do something to you, it's meant to be, right? So I like what I'm basically saying. I mean, you can walk through all day, all along and not talk to anybody, but it's the one person that stops and says, "Hey, how you doing today?" That individual, you know, that it might be a situation where you might like, "Hey, you know, damn, you know, I was having a rough day," but when they said that, they came out of their way and said that, it made me feel metaphysically lifted. You know what I'm saying? It was what I needed in my soul. And that's what this gentleman did. It was just like when he spoke to me today, you know, at first I was like, you know what? I wasn't really going to talk to anybody. But when he told me his story and he told me what he's been through, and all I'm trying to say, and I'm not trying to have this whole long, eloquently, elaborate, it's just what I'm just basically trying to say is if you just stop one day and you just talk to a person, you'd be surprised who you would meet. And I met Mr. Anthony Walsh that day, and he inspired me. So we're back on camera now, and what I want to do is, initially in your book, you told me it was a situation that caused you to write that book. There was an interaction between you and another gentleman during that time, and it was the point of the book. I think he wrote a nigger, said a nigger, something like that during hockey. Something that inspired you to write that. And what can you go back to that and tell me that day and what had happened to you, and how did you feel as I'm assuming you're in high school during the time that happened?
Yeah. So I mean, so hockey is for everybody is, you know, it's autobiographical, and so of somewhat, and so I took a bunch of the things that happened to me over the time that I was 3.5, 4 years old to about 20 to 21 years old on the rink, and melded those together into a children's book story to be able to teach a lesson there. And so Anthony is the main character as myself. There's Matt, who's a real person, who's a teammate who stands as an amalgamation of my teammates. And then there's Jason, who stands as the amalgamation of the people that had said unruly, less than savory things to me as I was playing the game. And so, I played hockey again, like I had said, for 20 something years, right? And so at the end of the day, 19 years, and so most of it was really positive. Again, the majority, right? But just you had people that were saying stuff here and there, and so. When I was growing up, a lot of times I would get the basketball corks over there, or why aren't you shooting hoops, or go eat a banana. And so, I had a coach say that to me one time, not any Dyna coach, but a coach. And then, I had, again, just a lot of those experiences. It would happen when you were playing teams up north, or maybe a team from Wisconsin, Michigan, something, right? People that you didn't see quite regularly. And so that's when that kind of stuff would happen. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I wrote the book kind of, again, going back to it, because I really think that what happened with, on May 25th, 2020, with George Floyd being murdered by Derek Chauvin, was a real breakdown of cross-culture relationships, and that it starts with our youth. And so, kind of, again, going back to hockey, I think that, as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, the people I played with, etc., we are all in a position in life now where we've done well for ourselves. And, I attribute being on teams that had common goals when we were young, working towards them, not having not having it matter what the person next to you looked like, as long as they were getting the job done, right? And that's all that mattered. We would eat together, we would laugh together, we'd be at each other's houses, we'd go to school drive to hockey, right, etc., all these kind of things. And so you're with these people more than your family during the hockey season. And again, over the course of all those years, that's a lot of time to just spend with these people. And so, the fact that we got to see one, having a diverse group of people together works, but then also that, we were able to be successful, seemed like something that we've kind of forgotten, and wanted to remind Minnesota people that I grew up around why it's important to have those interactions and relationships, especially built when you're younger.
Well, when you say that, it always, like you said, remind me of Remember the Titans, that movie with Denzel Washington.
Fantastic.
That's like quintessential to, and it was during a time where it was not only on the field but off the field, right?
Yeah.
It was
1970s Virginia.
It was really undesirable to have a black coach and to have a black coach telling white children what to do and have these, but that movie was so inspirational to growing up, but it also impressed upon what sports should look like. But I think what I'm hearing from you is that your understanding of playing sports in Minnesota being excluded, but also being a high performance individual. But I liked also what you said about, because I'm an engineer at heart, the amalgamation of metals, making a metal stronger. I think that was the most quintessential point that you made. And I think through sports, that's in action, what's accomplishing that. So how much of that are you taking into your political office, that understanding of working together to formulate something much stronger?
Yeah, that's what I'm entirely bringing into political office. That's why, I'm running as an independent, so that I can really, again, garner the support of people from all different backgrounds, right? If I run as a Democrat, then unfortunately people that identify ideologically as Republicans, would not want to vote for me, and vice versa. And so, again, I am me. I am the representative from the 3rd District of Minnesota, right? And so I will listen to all constituents, black, white, gay, straight, Latino, LGBTQIA+, like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's all, who we are as individuals, and we all deserve, again, to have a voice. And so, that is what I will bring and continue to bring, and I've experienced throughout my life. And so, sports, again, like you said, is such a great example. Remember the Titans, the Olympics, right? You had, and I'm getting emotional talking about this, right? But Joe Louis, think about just what he did when he fought Schmeling, right? And what that did, for America, the consciousness there. You think about Russia versus United States in 1980 Olympic team, those young men beating the Russians. You think about, the fists at, Mexico City, right? Yeah. You think, just like, sports and social issues have gone together since the beginning of time, but people only recently and now have tried to say, oh, sports have never had social issues, right? When Colin Kaepernick came around doing the kneeling and said, keep that out of my sport. It's like, if you know anything about sports, again, like that, sports has been the main battle frontier for getting messages out that people need. Muhammad Ali did not go to Vietnam, right? He was a boxer, athlete, right? What happened when he had that press conference? He had the greats, you had the Russells, you had, your Ali, everybody came to support him at that press conference as being the black athletes because they were saying, we are, bringing people together. And so Larry Bird and Magic, right? Their little rivalry there, right? It's just but positive rivalry, right? It's like sports brings people together. And so it's always about that. And so, again, bringing it into politics should bring people together.
And we've seen,
right? Like, instead it's divisive.
We're seeing such a divisive, separatist,
doesn't need to be that way,
situation. And it's just it seems to me to be more inviting to be, the individual who's carrying this outlier conversation that makes no sense, opposed to talking about, again, bringing people together and trying to make it more of a inclusion, diverse conversation. Like I said, what I did enjoy is the fact that you're stepping into the arena. Now, do you know anything about the candidates that you're running against? Like, have you did any research on them at all?
Yeah. Yeah.
So are they do they seem to be pushing their party's agenda pretty much. So they're not trying to. So they're just pushing a Democrat. Whatever the platform is pushing is what they're reciting verbatim, pretty much.
Yes, I would say different levels of it. DFL candidates, one I would say probably a little bit more progressively liberal than the other.
Right.
So, but just that, which ideologically, right? I'm not 100% opposed to, but just that like nothing can get done in that sense if you're going to say I can only think and vote this way because I'm a part of a party, right?
Right.
We have to be able to reach across the aisle.
Across the aisle,
yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
What was that? What the gentleman that's stepping down? What was his political affiliation? Was he Republican or Democrat?
So Dean Phillips is not stepping down. We don't know what he's doing, and so the seat is open. So he's running. He's stepping up, right? Like he's running for president. He spent the last 4 months calling for somebody. Joe Biden could be a hero, right? He could, we had an existential crisis at one point. He blah blah blah. Okay, he's president, but there's no reason. I think you need to continue. We've had Dianne Feinstein, God bless her, but die in office, right? Like these are things that like we don't need to keep on seeing happening, right? Like we need people to be able to pass the torch. And so Dean Phillips has been talking about that, and nobody realistically stepped up. And so he said, I can no longer be talking action. I must take action. And so Dean Phillips announced. Dean Phillips essentially has vacated Dean Phillips' seat on the 3rd District congressional seat, and so it exposed himself to challengers. So you had Ron Harris announce, who was a DFL candidate, a young black man, again, very formidable opponent. I want to meet him, look forward to, spending time and, all that kind of stuff and seeing what he's about. And then Claude Morrison, who is an OGBYN, and again, just a DFL candidate. And so, Democratic Party candidates and, good people, but forced to follow a party line and, only which then would lead to more division. And so I feel like it takes courage to do what I'm doing, to be quite frank, and I'm happy to be the person to do that. And so, I am willing again to listen and accept ideas from the other side of the aisle, quote unquote, whatever side that comes from. And again, you will find me championing issues on both sides of the aisle and being unabashful about it, unapologetic. So
let's go back to your stance on, because it's great that you mentioned the voiceless, because IGSTS is the voice of the voiceless. And the reason the platform was set up to give individuals like yourself, like myself, an ability to amplify our voice to individuals and let people know that there's other conversations happening without it being channeled into a campaign or a party's positioning or what's going on currently. It's really real things going on. Like you said, children being home, starving, individuals dealing with recidivism. And the one thing that, because right now I'm working on policy myself, and you brought up expungement. I'm going back to that conversation because holistically expungement it's a Band-Aid on a situation that needs to be really reformed. And what I mean by that is if a person gets an expungement on the record, that it only expunges to a point where employer might not be able to see it, but DHS can still see it. The BCA can still see it. And the problem with that is if an individual goes into the medical field, which is run by DHS has a barring system that bars individual not based on their, so I would say if you were in the medical field and you committed something against a vulnerable adult, you should not be allowed to work back in that field, or it should be a bar depending on the gravity or level of offense that you committed. And that could be negotiated and debated about. But what they've done in several different categories of criminal behavior or criminal offenses, they've barred individials from participating.
Call it permanent disqualifier.
Yeah, I gotta be able to talk. They're gonna bar you. If they bar you from that position, Minnesota being a huge medical employer, it does create a glass ceiling for individuals coming out of prison. So being that said, pushing an expungement conversation to me seems to be obsolete at the time because it's a Band-Aid. Disbarment in that policy needs to be relooked at. Being a just and impacted individual and having people that I know experience that bar, me bringing it to your attention, whether it's new or it's old, I want to know your positioning on it. And how do you feel about that? If it's something new, I understand. But if it's, but just the fact that they're barring people who have criminal histories from being in the medical field that have no related crime when it comes to that, how does that resonate with you?
So I guess one, I would say like expungement. I guess when I think about that, I do think in particular with drug crimes. And so when you're saying expungement, what is your definition of expungement?
An expungement
and so, cause like, I mean, I know like what, but for instance, like when like cannabis legal in Minnesota now. Right.
And if you had a cannabis crime.
Yes. And people could not get jobs, people could not get house, like, you know what I'm saying? Like that. And so the fact that, right, it's legal now, people are making money off of it, all this kind of stuff, right? It's ludicrous that's even on anybody's record. So then,
let me explain that now. So say if I did have an offense again that involved marijuana, they initially started to say that they're gonna take those offenses off people's records, but then they were not doing like a blanket. They were doing it minor offenses, which minor offenses themselves might be an expungible offense. It's statutory, so we don't know. It was a federal movement. Minnesota being statutory might be able to make it more robust, less robust. It doesn't. But the fact of the matter is, an expungement in itself it does remove the offense off your record, but there's certain agency that can still see that. Even if it's removed, so it's not permanently or totally removed off your record, they can still see it. Maybe an apartment complex can't see it. Maybe you go get an employment, the employment at McDonald's can't see it, but DHS could still see that expungement.
We're talking about
the part
cannabis.
We're talking about cannabis.
Yeah, that is,
y'all both gonna make me push y'all out the way. We're not talking about cannabis. We're talking about second degree assault with a firearm.
No, we can't talk specifically about your...
No. But you're talking about specific crimes. First degree, second degree.
No, we're not.
First degree and second degree assaults. Permanent disqualifiers.
We can't talk. We're not talking about that. We're trying to...